Okay, so once you've downloaded the template files and run them in your browser, this is what you should have. Now obviously we don't have the menu up here or the login form, however you have the main template, the area that we're going to be outputting everything to, and obviously we're going to go ahead and create the folders we need to. So this is what it should look like if you have any doubt in your mind. And let's go ahead and take a look at the directory structure again. So obviously you would have had CSS, images and template and the index.php file. You're going to need to go ahead and create uploads, widgets and func. Now func you want to place thumb.func.php inside, which again is available to download. So when you've created the func folder, make sure you put this file in and make sure it's called thumb.func.php. With the uploads folder, when you create this, you're going to need to create a subfolder inside or a subdirectory called thumbs. This is empty obviously for now, but this is where thumbnails will go. Now inside the uploads folder, we're going to be creating folders for each album that the user creates, and this is going to correspond to the ID in the database, obviously something we're going to look at a bit later on. And the thumbs folder will hold all thumbnails, and that will also correspond to the album as well. So for example, if the album created has an ID of 2, the folder will be called 2, and inside of that will be all the images that are inside of that album. Thumbs will also contain a folder then called 2, and will contain the thumbnails that correspond to them images. So it sounds quite complicated, but the way we're going to write it hopefully should come clear a bit later on. Now let's take a quick look at index.php. You can see that we've included the header template file and the footer template file, and in the main content area we've just echoed out the image, which is the landing page image. So a bit later on, when we create the function to test if the user's logged in, we're actually going to check if the user's logged in and display a message if they have actually logged in. So as long as you're comfortable with how the header and the footer template works, then you'll understand that anything you put in between, be it PHP code or standard output like in HTML, that will be displayed, the output of that will be displayed within the area as you see here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create some files. Now we need to create first of all a file that's going to initialize our entire script. So let's go ahead and create a blank PHP document, so with the tags but no code, inside here called init.php, and we're going to include that in every page we use, and this file is going to contain the session start, the connection to our database, which we will require on every page, and then this will also include the rest of the functions. So for example, it will include the thumb.func.php. So we've created init.php and we can close that for now. The next thing we need to create is the files inside widgets, and this is going to be the menu and the login. So let's go ahead and create 2 new files in our text editor. I'm going to go ahead and we can just leave these blank, I suppose. I'm going to save one of these as inside widgets. I'm going to save one of these as menu.php. This is going to be the menu at the top of the page. So we can go ahead perhaps and put menu in there for now. And the other file is going to be the login. This is going to be the login form, and this page is also going to contain some PHP code that's going to process the login as well. So I'll save that as login.php, and I can close, well, we'll just type login there as well, and I can close them 2 files. Now we need to include these inside of our header, so we need to include the menu just up here, and we need to include the login form just here. So we can go ahead and do that now. Let's open up our templates folder, and let's open up header.php. You can see I've got a div called menu, so obviously the menu is going to go in here. Let's tab across and actually include this in PHP. So we say include template, widgets / menu.php. So that's included our widgets folder, and then that's included menu.php. We're going to do the same with login.php. So we can go ahead and copy this line here, come down here, and inside of this span, which is a span essentially just shifted to the right, this is just underneath the logo, this will include login.php. So once you've made that change, go ahead to your browser and refresh, and you can see that we've got the menu just up here and the login just there. So we've got them in exactly the same place, or exactly in the right place that we need to actually use them. So let's go ahead and start to build up our menu. Now if we open context and also open our widgets file, which is menu.php, we can then start to create our home link, which will always be the same. So we can go ahead and create a href, and let's say home inside here, and that will link to index.php. Okay, so we'll also need to create a registration link. However, once the user's logged in, we don't want to display this registration link again. So we can go ahead and create this now anyway, but later on we're going to be wrapping this inside PHP code. So we're going to include this in the block, which would result in the user not being logged in. So we're going to link that to register.php and just write register, and I'm going to go ahead and put a / after that, which will just separate them nicely. Okay, so let's go and preview that in our browser. Let's press refresh, and you can see that we've got two links. One home, which just goes back to the index.php file, and register, which will go to register.php when we create it. Now let's go ahead and create our login form. So we can close menu.php and we can open up login.php. Okay, so obviously for now we're just creating the actual form itself, and we're not going to be creating any code just yet. We're going to be doing this once we have the registration page out of the way. So we're going to be creating a form, and the action of this is going to be blank, and that just means that whatever page that we're currently on, the page will always submit to the current page. The method is going to be post. We're sending it post data, and inside of here we'll create a couple of paragraph tags, and inside of here we can start to create the text input fields. So I'm going to say email and input type equals, that's text. The or no, actually we can type email because I'm using HTML5. This will automatically validate our email. We're going to call the name, we're going to call this login_email, and that's basically it for that. We can then come down and say password, and we can do exactly the same here. Let's just copy and paste that to save time, and in here type is password. Obviously that will just asterisk that out in your browser, and we'll call this login password. We obviously then need to create a button, so we're just going to create another input field, but this is going to be type of submit, and then the value of this is just going to be login. That's just what's displayed to the user. So let's go ahead and preview that. I've saved that file. When we refresh, you can see that we've got this login field here, or login form here rather, that's allows us to enter our email and password. Now the reason I used the type as email is because in HTML5 you have the added benefit of the validation of the email address. So if I was just to type, say, Alex, and type in any password and click login, you can see that we get this little box come up saying please enter an email address. So as well as validating on the front end, we can also validate on the back end as well, which we will be doing because obviously someone could easily modify this value. So we need to ensure that the email is valid on the back end as well. It's not so much important on the login because obviously if we don't have a correct email address we won't be able to log the user in anyway. However, it's always nice to just always validate an email address where it's entered. So now that we're done with the login.php, we can close that. We have included these obviously in our header.php, so whatever page we're on, we're always going to display the menu and we're always going to display the login. Now the login will change because if the user is actually logged in, we can then greet them. So for example, we have an if statement that's going to check if the user's logged in. If they are, we just give them a greeting, so hello Alex for example. Otherwise we can then display the form, and we're also going to be processing the login on this page as well. Okay, so now that we have our page looking pretty much how we want it, and the login form in place and the basic menu up here in place, We can go ahead in the next video to outlining and defining the functions that we're going to use.